So we have 5 Americans that are left in the Champions League. Okay. Brendan Aronson, RB Salzburg taking on Bayern Munich. Good luck with that, Brendan Aronson. Though I think it's a good opportunity for him, Kareem Adeyemi, Noah Okafor, that front three to get on a bigger platform and see what they can do against one of the best clubs in the world. Got Timothy Weah and Lille taking on Chelsea. Now, he hasn't been starting for them regularly, but I think he's going to get some valuable minutes. Hopefully, he can turn that into something special. You got Weston McKennie, Juve versus Villarreal. And also, I should go back to Chelsea because Christian Pulisic obviously plays for the Blues. So we actually have a matchup of Weah versus Pulisic. McKennie, I actually think that Villarreal, I think that could be the one upset if I think about it. Juve just, I don't know, man. They haven't figured it out under Maxi Allegri. They don't have the right parts. Different conversation, different podcast. We can get into that.
I will say also the Chelsea one, though, because Chelsea's the only English team that plays their first game at home. So there is something to say about Lille getting that second game away. True. That there's I know there's no away goals or any of that sort of stuff in the knockout rounds, but there is that momentum of saying, just like most teams do, is like, go and grind that out. Your second one's at home. Lille has that advantage against this Chelsea side. The Chelsea side, by the way, and again, we're talking about something in the middle of February that they're going to have to start playing these games. So a lot can change during that period. But if you were playing Chelsea now in that context, you like your chances still with the way that Chelsea's giving up goals uncharacteristically differently than they did before. And I know we're trying to drive this back to USMNT, but if you're Timo Weah, you like this Chelsea side compared to the Chelsea side of past in terms of like not giving up any goals, staunch defense, and then have world-class players to bury you, including Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, I mean, just to speak, I guess, CONCACAF-wise, Jonathan David will be starting for Lille, most likely in those 2 legs against Chelsea. So we'll see how he performs, because right before those 2 matches, he's going to be taking on the U.S. on January 30th in Canada. So that should be
Hamilton, Ontario, January 30th. What is that weather going to be like?
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. And then there's Zach Steffen, obviously representing Manchester City behind with unfortunately sitting behind Ederson against Sporting Clube de Portugal. What I'll say about Sporting, I really like Sporting and how they've been playing. Pote in particular has been excellent throughout this, both domestically and in Europe. But Sporting really struggled with Ajax. Ajax were very Johan Cruyff inspired. So is Pep Guardiola. And I just feel like that type of style is going to run Sporting down. So Zach Steffen, maybe what I'm trying to say is if Man City can get a big lead in leg 1, like Ajax did when they played them the first group stage game and then won 5-1 in Lisbon, then maybe Zach Steffen could get that second leg. That would be awesome. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, I did want to talk to you about Weston McKennie. There are rumors that Juve are looking to sell him and Aaron Ramsey and Archer. Now, there's been some links to Tottenham. Would you like to see Weston McKennie leave Juve and go to a different league, maybe even back to the Bundesliga for a bigger club, or go play for Antonio Conte with Spurs? Like, what are your thoughts on Weston McKennie's future, and do you think it's in Turin?
I don't think it's in Turin. I think he's done a good job there. The reason I don't like Turin for him or Juventus for him is because the club is in shambles right now, right? They're going through like an identity crisis in terms of how they play, the way that they approach games, the players that they have. Obviously, they left it late to let Ronaldo go, knowing that they needed to shed weight in terms of their wage bill, knowing that there's a lot of financials around that deal. Now, if they're going to come in January and build around that, great. And it's not even about whether the club is the right thing for him. Where I want to see Weston McKennie is rewarded for his performances. Find a place that if he is playing well and he is helping the team get results, that it's all about that. And Juventus, I think, is always going to be a place, because of the magnitude of the club, that you could find yourself in and out of the team every week forever, because you just don't know the pressure from the fans, the club. This is, 10 years in a row they won it. Now they haven't. Now they're struggling. Now they're just fighting to get top 4 is probably going to be their direction for the year. Then I don't think that's a great club for any player, not just Weston. If you're any player and you're looking at it and you're saying, you start to think like, well, there's nothing I can do to really control this. There's so many things happening around me that are outside of my control that I'm not sure if that's a situation that I would want to be in if I was Weston. And so I think another club where, there's a little more stability to the club, I think is a better look for him. And even, dare I say, Spurs has more stability than a Juventus does, just because Juventus are so big that those swings are going to be even bigger than I think they are at a Spurs. What about you?
Well, Maxi Allegri came out and said that Locatelli is definitely one of their number one guy in midfield, and everybody's going to have to kind of work around there. They have Rabiot, who I think is actually better centrally, even though they try to put him out wide, and Benacer is another one, that they try to throw out there, or Bentancur.
Bentancur,
yeah, Bentancur. Yeah. Benacer's on AC Milan. With regard to Weston, though, they purchased him for $20 million. Do you think he's warranted? There's rumors that he'd go for 40. Do you think he's worth 40? Where do you think his value is? And because that would be good business from Juve, whether he worked out or whether you thought he worked out or not. To buy him for 20 and sell him for 40 is good business, in my humble opinion. I just don't know if he'd go for 40 unless there was some type of, I don't know, you're trying to sell this, hey, the American perspective, the sport's trying to grow in America. You get to market this player in a different way. I don't know. What do you think his value is? I know you're interested.
The thing is, he goes for 40. He goes for 40 to the Premier League because the Premier League will spend 40 on a player like Weston McKennie. I don't know if his valuation, if the market dictates that and it's a Premier League club, then yeah, he's worth 40 because that's what the Premier League top 6 or 8 are going to pay for a top level midfielder coming from another league or even domestically. They'll pay 25 for a guy. They'll pay a 25 for a guy coming out of an academy, and so. I think it's hard to value because it's all dictated by market conditions, but only somebody from the Premier League is going to pay 40 for Weston McKennie. And I think somebody like a Spurs can afford to pay that for a central midfielder. Now, what I like about Weston McKennie leaving is that, again, he becomes a piece of a larger puzzle, whereas that's what they bought him under. They bought him under the conditions of being a piece of a larger puzzle at Juventus, right? They didn't buy him to be a key piece of the larger puzzle. They bought him to be a piece of that puzzle. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, we need more goals from him. We need this, we need that. And they started trying to shape him into being another type of player with a different type of expectations. Now, I think Weston should want that with the ambition that he has. He's playing at Juventus, right? His goal count should go up if he's hovering in and around the box every game. But that's not necessarily what they brought him in as, right? He was more of an 8 instead of like an 8.5, where he's a little bit closer to the box more often and that sort of thing. So I think in another club or in another system, you can see the value that Weston brings. He can be your 4 to 7 goals a year kind of guy, late runner, but still has the pace to get back, transition game, good on the ball, those types of things. When you start to put him into some of these other clubs and systems, you go, okay, I can see the quality that Weston brings to this system.
Yeah, no, you make some good points. To see David's comment here and Larry's before that about Weston's Juve's best midfielder. Allegri said as much. Why would they let him go? Well, they got to figure out their books, and Heath can talk about it. Juventus has similar Barcelona vibes where they're on the precipice of being in a very, very dire financial situation. And maybe they're already there and they're just masking it a little bit better than Barcelona did. But with regard to Weston McKennie, I don't know. Maybe there's some emphasis about him wanting to go. He's played in 16 games so far under Allegri, and he could be a good partner for Locatelli for sure. I think there is room for him, and I think he has room to grow. Right now on transfer market, they're saying his value is $25 million. So maybe they wouldn't get 40 for him, but maybe 30, 35, still good business. But again, who are they going to? They've already mentioned that Artur's probably out. They're trying to move Ramsey as fast as possible. The guy's on $400K a week. Dude sits on the bench making $400K a week. Heath, what are we doing with our lives? Dude,
I'm on like $395 a week,
yeah,
and
but with no decimal point or commas.
Yeah, and he doesn't even do podcasts. So.
He doesn't. All right, so that's the Weston McKennie talk. Obviously, plenty to get into as this goes along, and sure we'll talk about it much more on the U.S. Men's National Team Hour.